I often get asked about the tools that we need for quilting for people that are starting out. It can be expensive, so it's a good idea not to jump in and get everything that you need straight away if you're not sure you're going to be carrying on. When I first started, a lot of the quilt blogs were based in the United States, and a lot of the rulers that people were using for the quilts weren't available here in the UK. I very quickly worked out that there was only a few that I needed and that I use, and these are the ones that I've continued to use throughout the years. So these are my staple requirements for my toolbox. Anything else is a bonus, so I thought I'd share those with you today. So let's start with the sewing machine. There's a couple of feet that you'll find that are essential. You'll need a walking foot for your machine. Be aware that there's different walking feet suitable for different types of machines, so make sure that you've got one that's compatible with yours. I do have another video with some information on walking feet and how to attach them. I'll put a link there so that you can easily find it. So that helps for sewing with thick fabric. So when you've got your quilt layered up, it helps to draw the fabric through with the feed dogs of your machine. With these on the top, it helps to even out the feeding through of your fabric to reduce wrinkles. So that's that. The other foot that you need is a piecing foot. Now there are two different types of piecing foot. In quilting we use 1/4 inch seam allowance, so these feet are designed to mark your 1/4 inch. So that's very much how it's designed. So this one, just use the edge of the foot to get that 1/4 inch. Now there is another one available and it has a stitch guide here. You allow your fabric just to run up against that fabric, that guide there, to get your 1/4 inch. I do advise you don't change your feet during a quilt. So if you've started making a quilt and you're using one foot, carry on until you get to the end, because there's always slight differences and you might find yourself having problems matching up your seams and getting your blocks the right size. So once you've decided which piece and foot you're going to be using, then stick with that throughout your quilt. So that is what you need for your sewing machine. So when it comes to rulers, you can get all sorts of different rulers. These are made out of acrylic plastic, long lasting, hard wearing, and that's what you need. So this one is my 6.5 inch square. I like to be able to have my 1/4 inches and 1/8 inch marked throughout the square. Makes it easier for lining up when you're squaring off smaller blocks. There is a diagonal line here, so when you're squaring off blocks with a seam across the middle, like half square triangles, you're able to line that up against your seam and you know you're going to get a square block with the diagonal seam in the centre. So that's one I use for squaring up small blocks and cutting smaller pieces of fabric. This long one is 24 inches by 6.5 inches. Again, it's 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch marks on there. This is what I use for cutting long lines, usually the off your width of fabric, if you want to be able to cut straight up without having to move your ruler up, and that I'll use in conjunction with my large square ruler there for squaring off quilts. Again, it's got the diagonal angles, lines there, which is helpful as well. My last one that I use is this 15.5-inch square. Again, we have a diagonal line across it. We've got the 30 and 60 degree marks there as well. I generally use 45. This one I use for squaring off bigger blocks. Obviously you can go up to 15.5 inches. A lot of most common block size you'll be finding is 12.5, so that's plenty big enough. So those are the rulers that I use. So when it comes to cutting out, use a cutting mat. This one is marked with inches, and I've gone for one with inches on purposely because when we come to quilting, we work in inches. Even though in the UK we buy fabric in centimetres and metres, quilting is done in inches. So I have it so that my cutting mat is marked with inches. This one is only a single-sided one. It was the only one I could get at the time, and I've gone for as big as I can get. Obviously, being here in the studio, this extra size helps. They come in small size as well, so I've got a smaller one for going to workshops or for retreats if I just want something a bit smaller. If you've got a double-sided one, you're obviously going to extend the life of your mat because you're going to be able to use both sides. So once one side's worn out, you can turn it over. But with good care and attention, these should last you for a number of years. This is only the second one I've had in the time that I've been quilting. The other essential tool that we need is for cutting out is our rotary cutter. Now, this one that I've got has lasted me all these years. I just regularly change the blade. You want to do that as soon as it becomes difficult to cut through layers of fabric, or if it's beginning to miss pieces, you want to make sure you've got the blades there. This is an Olfa rotary cutter, and this can be set up to be left-handed or right-handed. Again, I have a video there that will explain that for you. I'll put a link so you can easily find that. So used along with your rulers, that is what we use for cutting out our fabric. The other thing that I would recommend are wonder clips. If you look around, you can get them at reasonable prices. These are brilliant for holding, instead of using pins for doing your binding. It's a lot easier to clip thick fabric together than it is to try and get pins through, and you have the bonus of not having sharp points sticking into you. So this has been one of the best buys that I've had. So I've bought a couple of sets of them just to build up for the amount that I need. So those are the basic and what I call my essential tools for quilting. You're obviously going to need your needles and thread, your sewing machine as well. So I hope you found that useful. If you have any questions, do come and ask, and I'll be pleased to help. So until next time, take care.